This is the GLOA. Welcome to the GLOA and US Lacrosse's Game Rules Book and Key Definitions presentation using the 2020 NFHS Boys Lacrosse Rules. This presentation is designed to assist new officials learn the mechanics, rules, positioning, and game management strategies necessary to become a successful official. The game of lacrosse is hundreds of years old, was played by Native Americans all the way from north of New Brunswick in Canada all the way down to Florida. If you are in Georgia, Ball Ground, Georgia is named for the place where the Cherokee played their stick game. Games were played on areas that had no boundaries other than natural boundaries. Hundreds of warriors would play at the same time. The Haudenosaunee or people of the Iroquois Confederacy are the ones who are most noted as having invented this game. This is known as the creator's game to them. Words describing the game often translate as bumping hips or little brother of war. In the 1800s, a Canadian beer company took over and standardized the rules. You'll note the wooden sticks still used here. In the 1600s, French Jesuits noted that they looked like a bishop's crozier, which is why they are referred to as lacrosse, and we refer to the stick as the cross in the rulebook. As the game evolved in the 70s, you see the introduction of helmets, you see the introduction of shoulder pads, arm pads, gloves, although for a very long period of time the stick remains the same. The wide V of the stick made the ball fairly easy to dislodge from just a light check. This began to change in the 1980s with the introduction of the plastic head and the metal stick. These were initially aluminum. You see some traditional stringing off to the right here, but you see the sort of standard modern mesh being introduced. The modern game has incredibly light sticks made of titanium alloys. The heads are incredibly designed to specifications, and this has necessitated a great many rule changes. We'll also notice that these athletes are bigger, stronger, and faster than we have seen in years past. And again, that has necessitated many rules changes. But the role of official really hasn't changed. We look ridiculous in whatever outfit, so you can thank the Lord that we don't wear this anymore. That being said, the rules have remained pretty consistent in how the game is played and the signals that we use to describe fouls. Here you can see traditional sticks, and these right here are really at that transition moment, and you can see the stick on the far right has the narrowing of the head at the throat, which makes the ball very difficult to dislodge. The game is played with 2 teams of 10. You are required to have a legally equipped goalkeeper on the field at all times. This is a non-negotiable rule. Field's 110 yards wide. So for football guys, this includes half of each end zone, and it's 53 and a third to 60. 53 and a third is the standard measurement for a high school football field. 60 is a lacrosse field, so technically it should be 110 by 60. You'll note we do not use soccer lines. Those are often 63 yards, I believe. But when given the choice between you're not sure and a football field, take the football field with. The game begins with a face-off. We'll have a presentation later on that addresses that particular play. The ball is in play by being carried, thrown, or batted with the cross or rolled, kicked in any direction. You can headbutt the ball into the goal. You can kick the ball into the goal. The first goal I scored in high school, I kicked it in, and I looked around, and the ref looked around, and he finally decided that it counted, and so I assumed it counted. No more than 6 offensive players on their end and 7 defensive players on their end. So we have offsides in lacrosse. Players may check with the body and the cross. Think hockey. If you've watched hockey, you can body check a player, and you can check their cross. Goal counts as 1, and most goals win. In your rule book, you will see there are 7 rules for lacrosse. Um, you have Rule 1, the game field and equipment, game personnel, time factors, play of the game, personal and ejection fouls, technical fouls, and penalty enforcement. NF NFHS is the body that writes these rules. These rules are written by coaches and administrators. There is an official on the committee, however, they are a non voting member. So when folks complain to you about who writes the rules and how referees are screwing everything up, we are not the people that write the rules. Um, there is a separate youth rules section. This is written by U.S. Lacrosse on a separate committee. Please note, however, many leagues use modifications, substantial modifications to youth rules. So while if you are taking the U.S. lacrosse test to become U.S. certified, you need to know the U.S. lacrosse youth rules, you're going to see wide variations in how those rules are actually applied. And of course, U.S. lacrosse, the governing body of the sport, is instrumental in helping both the federation and various associations um, manage this game. You really need to get in the rule book. If you're not you don't need to be a rules nerd, but you need to know the rules. And if you are a former coach or a former player or you're brand new to the sport, um, the rules are a lot different than they are purported to be on television and on the sidelines. So you got to get in there. And I'm going to give you some hints. Get a highlighter, mark up your rule book, rip it up. By the end of the season, it should be sort of torn to shreds. You're going to screw things up. It's what happens all the time. You're going to be able to have done something better. Get into the rule book, ask questions, think about ways you could have done it better. And that's really how you're going to learn and grow. Places to really look. Points of emphasis can be found right at the front of your rule book, first 1 or 2 pages. Those are the things that the Federation is telling us as officials we really need to be on the lookout for. For literally the last 10 years, um, head trauma, big hits, concussions have been really at the forefront. Sportsmanship is always at the forefront. Um, there's going to be a section that lists all the rule revisions. That's a great place to look through to see how things have changed recently, because you know there's going to be a question on the rules test about those rules changes. Rule 4, 8 through 9. Um, we sort of cite the rule book like we cite chapter and verse of the Bible. We do not say page 38. So if you're looking for Rule 4, 8, you're talking about a goal scored. Um, most goals wins. We really need to know what counts as a goal and what disallows a goal. This is something I review pretty regularly um, just to make sure I don't screw it up big time. Hey, when you do screw up stuff big time, how can you fix it? That's going to be Rule 713. Misapplication of rule, and also when you inadvertently blow a whistle or throw a flag. Um, you're going to have probably a senior guy on the game with you, and that's great. But at some point, you're going to be that senior guy. So this is a really good one to know what you can do and how you can fix it. Goal crease privileges and prohibitions, 419 through 21. Um, if you are a football official, the goal crease privileges and prohibitions is essentially the kicking game. It's going to take you 3 years to kind of wrap your head around what is happening with this rule in real time. You can do great on the test, but after you've run 110 yards down the field and it's 90 degrees outside and there's bodies laying in the crease and the ball's in the goal, everybody's going to look at you. These are situations where you really want to spend a lot of time. So I highly recommend sort of trying to tackle Rule 4, goal crease privileges and prohibitions on a regular basis throughout the rest of your lacrosse officiating career. Sudden victory overtime, Rule 432. This is, what do you do for overtime? If you buy one of the plastic scorecards that officials use, this rule is printed on the scorecard. It's a nice place to reference it. Um, you need to know this one. And finally, signals. Uh, I will say this again and again in this presentation and in all of my presentations, you will see the signal that is in the rule book for each of the rules. It's really important that you get in there and practice these. Get in front of the big mirror, whether it's your wife's or your daughter's or your sister's or your roommate's. Get in front of that big full body mirror and practice your signals. If you are a football official and you are not a white hat, you have never really given signals to the crowd. And in a lacrosse game, all officials are going to be signaling what the penalties are to the table, the coaches, and each other. And it's really important that you know, like you look like you know what you're doing. You want to channel your inner Ed Hockley for those of you who are NFL fans, um, and you want to really make sure you're giving everybody the show. Terms to highlight: shall, must, and will. Um, these are in the rule book. You should highlight them and underline them. These are non-negotiable. A team shall have two legally equipped goalkeepers. We're not going to play the game unless they do. You're also going to see may, should, and can. These are things that players or coaches or officials can do, may do, should do, but it's not necessarily required. Make sure you're paying attention to that. And then again, get in there with a highlighter, get in there with bookmarks, dog ear it, however you learn and want to do this. I would suggest that the rulebook is available on iTunes and on the Amazon Kindle store. It's about $6 or $7. What's really nice about the online version is that it is searchable. So while you may be able to dog ear and rip stuff up, if you're really having trouble finding a rule or a situation, sometimes it's nice to do it online and then jump into the actual hard copy and make your notes. U.S. Lacrosse, again, is the governing body. They put out a lot of great materials. Um, all of this stuff can be found at galaxref.com under our resources page. Please note that in the U.S. Lacrosse Mechanics Manual, some teams, particularly teams in Texas, teams in private school leagues in Maryland, use NCAA rules. So they're not using federation rules. Um, the manual there is primarily based on federation, but there are references to NCAA rules. Just note that that does not apply to what we're doing here in Georgia. In the training manual, you will see stuff about the game, you will see game management, you will see appendices, and there are QR codes. You can use your cell phone to scan that code, and it'll jump you directly to videos and all sorts of great resources that have been put together in order to help you sort of get better. You'll see some great videos. So this is a really wonderful resource that pairs with what we're doing here. So let's talk about some lacrosse terminology. We're going to talk about the who, the what, and the where. Who, midfielders, also known as middies, are your two-way players. They play defense, they play offense. They're the guys that face off. You have defensemen. You'll have three of those, also known as D or long poles. Those three defensemen have a cross that is 52 to 72 inches long, whereas the midfielders play with what we call a short stick, which is 40 to 42 inches. Your attackmen, your three attackmen, are the guys that are probably your best offensive players, and they hang out by the other team's goalie. They're on their offensive side of the field. They don't play a lot of defense. And then you have your goalkeeper. The goalkeeper has special equipment, special cross, and is standing up against a solid Indian rubber ball that can be coming at him anywhere up to 100 miles an hour. The head coach is the person who's going to certify his players are equipped and willing to demonstrate sportsmanship. He is going to be able to call timeouts. He is going to be able to ask you questions. That is not to say that we don't talk to assistant coaches. I will talk to anybody who is polite to me and asking me a question. But it really is the head coach that is the only person who sort of has the right under the rules to engage with officials. What are you doing? We're playing offense or defense. That's pretty simple. If you are on offense in the rule book, you are almost always referred to as Team A. If you are on defense on the rule book, you are almost always referred to as Team B. Just note that. A team trying to get the ball from their defensive end to their offensive end is referred to as the clearing team. Getting it over the midfield is considered a successful clear. If you are riding the ball, you are the team trying to prevent that team from clearing the ball. So you were on offense and you have lost the ball either in a turnover, a saved shot, or a foul, and you are trying to prevent a team from getting the ball into their offensive end. And then we've got these terms, the alley, the box, there's two of them, the midline, the substitution or penalty box, the wing, the crease, goal line extended will be a key one, X or face-off X, uh, top left, top right, side right, and high and low crease. And then we'll talk about some terms that relate to what officials are doing or concepts. You have the lead official. The lead official is the guy down by the goal. And you have the trail official. He's on the opposite side of the field at the top of the box. You have a face-off and wing official. Face-off official conducts the face-off, and the wing official is on the wing. And then you have the on official and the off official. On official is the guy who is focused on the ball carrier and what is immediately going on around him. The off official has everybody else. Throughout the course of the game, you will become lead and trail a zillion times. You will do a face-off or be the wing official a zillion times. And in any given play, you might be the on official or off official multiple times. We've got the principle of advantage disadvantage, also known as TPOAD. If you are a basketball official, this is going to be second nature to you. You really can't have a lesser foul if there's no advantage or disadvantage. A play on is a situation where we allow a play to continue even though we know a minor foul has occurred because we are thinking that the team is going to get the ball and continue on potentially with a scoring opportunity. So why stop the play to allow the defense to reset when the play is just going to continue? And we'll go into that more and more. Flag down, slow whistle. If you are in possession of the ball and you get fouled, we have a flag. That means that team gets a free play to score, and essentially nothing bad can happen to them. If they score, we will assess the penalty and continue on with the game. If they do not score, we will stop the play and we will assess the penalty, and they will get their man advantage. Alternate possession is essentially the possession arrow in basketball. It's determined by the coin flip at the beginning of the game. And if an official doesn't know who should get the ball by rule, we assign a team to get it, and then the possession arrow flips. We note this on our scorecard. Get it in, keep it in, or geeky is a stall warning. You're essentially telling a team that they're not attacking the goal, and so they have to keep it in a confined area on the field. A stall, again, is an attempt to slow the game down, and you're not attempting to score. And finally, we have counts. Think of basketball as the 5-second count, or we have 3 of them in lacrosse, and we'll do a separate presentation on that. So some key definitions. Possession, a shot, a goal, out of bounds, an airborne player, and alternate possession. These 3 ones in red are the most important, and in particular, possession is the most important definition in this book. If you want to understand how to officiate lacrosse, you have to understand what possession is. So possession is, by rule, carrying, cradling, passing, or shooting. This is Rule 4.5, Articles 2 through 3. So here you've got a player passing. Here you've got a player carrying. Carrying is essentially just having the ball in your stick. Cradling is moving the ball back and forth to create centrifugal force so that you can see what's happening. This is the most important definition in the rulebook. In this case, you'll see the player is carrying and cradling. He is driving to the goal. He is now shooting and scoring. This is what you'll see in lacrosse, right? Here's another one-on-one. We're going to set up, that isolation play. We're going to beat the midi, and we're going to beat the goalie here stick side high. One of the things I recently learned was that Mr. Naismith, the man that invented basketball, you're all very familiar with him, he was a Canadian, and he was a lacrosse player. And so the offense of lacrosse really was the origin for offense in basketball. You're trying to create these one-on-one situations to allow folks to move, to isolate, create mismatches, get that shot off, and beat that goalie. right? So here's another example. Now, what is a shot? A shot is a ball propelled towards the goal by an offensive player with the intent of scoring a goal when the ball is parallel to or above goal line extended, thrown from across, kicked, or otherwise physically directed. The only person that determines whether something is a shot is the official. If you think the intent of the player was to score, it is a shot. If you think the intent of the player was to pass to a teammate, it is a pass. This comes from experience in watching games. It does not matter if you kick a ball towards the goal, it is a shot if your intent is to score. Now we talk about GLE. GLE is a line that's actually not on the field. It is from the goalpost and extends sideline to sideline. You cannot take a shot from behind the cage. There's really no chance that you can score. You must take a shot for it to be considered a shot from above this imaginary line. This would be, by the way, on a football field, the 10-yard line. Now, a shot ends, or a deflected shot ends, until the ball comes to rest. That is, it stops moving. When a team gains possession, that is carrying, cradling, passing, or shooting, the ball goes out of bounds or a player causes it to go out of bounds. What you have to determine in this last one is really what is the added impetus? Did the player essentially make this ball go out of bounds or would it have gone out of bounds on its own? Right? A goal. A goal is a loose ball, one that is not in player possession, that completely passes through the front of the plane formed by the rear edge of the goal line, goalpost, and crossbar. Impetus is irrelevant. This means that a ball that is not in player possession must completely pass over the line and past the bars. So if it's touching the line, it's not a goal. If it hits the pipe, you will hear coaches yell, oh, it hit 3 pipes, it has to be a goal. It is not a goal. It has to be completely past the rear edge of the goal line. When we get to lines, we'll talk about how the goal line is 2 inches and the crossbars are essentially 2 inches. So it's a 2-inch line all the way around. You've got to go completely past that. Now, shot release before the horn. Much like in basketball, a goal will be allowed if a shot is released prior to the end of the period. The shot can hit the ground, it can deflect off a goalkeeper or a defensive player, but once it hits an offensive player, the play's over. Out of bounds. Player in possession steps on or beyond any part of his body or cross touches the boundary line. If you have the ball and you step on the sideline, you're out of bounds. Um, if you touch the boundary line, you're out of bounds. All that happens is you're going to take possession away from that player. If a loose ball touches or a loose ball breaks the plane, award it to the team that didn't last touch it. Same thing as basketball. So you throw a pass and your buddy misses it and it goes out of bounds, it's going to the other team. So here's Kid. You're right in position. You're looking down the line. He's swatting the ball away. The question we have to ask ourselves is he in bounds? Is he touching the line? One of the best rules of officiating, I will tell you, is don't be too good. We're not here to make this call. We're here to make the big call. Find the big stuff, and the little stuff will take care of itself. Here's a restart. So this player is going to come in, and he is legally checked out of bounds. Because green 19 here has stepped out of bounds, even though white caused him to step out of bounds, he is going to lose possession of that ball. He is a player touching out of bounds in possession of a ball. So we're going to award it to white here. An airborne player. Whether an airborne player is in bounds or out of bounds is determined by what the player was last in contact with. So in this case, if this player jumped from out of bounds into the air and is hovering in the air over the out of bounds area, he is still considered in bounds. He may play, he may pass, he may do anything. If he is out of bounds and jumps up into the air in an attempt to get back in bounds, he's not in bounds until he is actually touched in bounds. The way I remember this is you are where you were. Shot out of bounds. The reason it's important that we talk about whether something is a shot or whether something is a pass is how you award a shot if it goes out of bounds. A shot's awarded to the inbounds player closest to where it went out of bounds when it went out of bounds. There's three key things we need to think about here. You need to be in bounds in order to be considered a player. So if you're standing out of bounds when a ball goes out of bounds on a shot, you don't count. Sometimes you'll see this when a player overruns a ball and is out of bounds before the shot goes out of bounds. Players are taught to chase the ball on a shot. In this case, the image on the right, you see these players all diving towards the end line. Whoever's closest is going to get that ball. It's not closest to the line, it's closest to the actual spot where the ball goes out of bounds at the exact moment it goes out of bounds. And the important thing here is the stick doesn't count. It is the body of the players. So in this case, if we were to draw a line straight up and down, it's going to be the goalie here, white 35, who is literally a couple of inches ahead of the two blue players. His stick has nothing to do with it. It is his bottom hand touching the ground there that's really close. The cross is not part of the player's body. Alternate possession. Used when an official cannot determine who should be awarded the ball. You'll note on the scorecard here, you see the little possession arrow in the middle, and you can move that back and forth. If you guys have any questions, if you have found any mistakes, if you have any concerns about this presentation, please make sure you give me a call or shoot me an email. I'd be happy to chat with you. These presentations are all available at galaxref.com, and other videos will be available on the GLOA YouTube page soon. Thank you so much for listening.